the reality is that the big schools look after the little schools, right? Because you kind of have to. I mean, that's just the nature of the landscape, right? So the money situation from a university perspective is never going to be an issue. It just it almost it almost creates the ability for the underdog to just be that much greater, honestly. Especially in those big time games and all those things, right? Like the money situation is never gonna deter the university. That's for sure.
So you don't think it's going to affect the competitive standpoint of like the school, like the MAC or non-Power Five schools?
No, no, because the way the system is set up now for the athlete to transfer wherever, you're always going to have slippage and overage, right? All those
Mhm.
kids are, the ones that were at a university that didn't get a chance to play. I mean, they got to be housed somewhere. So essentially, those schools will get if they do it correctly, which they're starting to understand how and why. It should work out. It should balance for sure.
What do you think of another one of our debates real quick? Well, I'll get to the last topic. We'll close up. But Jerry, I'm curious your thoughts. What's your overall take of Ryan Day right now in this Ohio State program? Obviously, losing 3 years in a row to Michigan. Last year, missed field goal away from beating Georgia. A lot of people question whether the program is what it used to be like urban, a lot more tougher, I guess you could say. I don't know another word to use, but uh, well, I guess what's your overall take on or analysis on Ryan Day and the program?
Yep, I think Ryan Day is stressed. To be honest with you, I think he understands that his ability to develop is subpar. And what I mean is, like for instance, Joe, and I'm gonna come back to you with the Michigan game this year, right? Unfortunately, Lathan Ransom, our starting safety, was out, right? And we had a guy, Sonny Styles, in playing safety, but he also plays linebacker, the bullet position, strong safety, all those things, right? And he was our starting safety. And the play I'm gonna reference is the play right after Zach Minter when Blake Corum scored, right after Zach Minter got hurt.
Mhm.
So I think it was the inside zone, which this is why I love the Michigan coaching. They run traditional, pull guys and, feed the running backs in. And that's why, obviously the run game is second to none. However,
Mhm.
if you notice, Sonny Styles had an opportunity to bring Blake Corum down, right in the hole. It was a decent hole, but I mean, it wasn't big enough to, fit two Mack trucks through it or anything like that. But it was good enough for him to get loose. However, Sonny Styles had an opportunity to make the play in the hole and actually probably make it a minimal gain, if any, right? And Blake Corum obviously, makes a hop step and skips past Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles misses him and he scores, and Blake Corum throws up to 6-5 in the end zone. However, if Sonny Styles was prepared to play in that game in that position, honestly, Blake Corum probably wouldn't have scored. They probably would have kicked a field goal, and momentum could have potentially shifted, and therefore Kyle McCourt wouldn't have had to been the savior in that last final drive in order for us to
Right.
believe behind the McCourt to come back and win us the game. And the point is that I think Ryan Day has to do a better job of putting his guys, his younger guys, who are not yet prepared and ready from an understanding of a football player standpoint. He has to put his guys in position in order to develop over the course of a season, right? Because even though Kyle McCord wasn't the best, right? And obviously you could tell from a lot of games where he was missing guys wide open, you know.
Skipping reads.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Missing reads, all the above, right? Not going through this progression, right? A lot of it was, his growth, right? He didn't have a lot of opportunity to grow because honestly, we didn't have time for him to. And the reality is, and over the course of the last 2 years he was there outside of this year, right? And I know he played one game, but he had an opportunity to be behind prolific passers. Well, one major prolific passer, but another, NFL quarterback that, he's not a pocket passer, but he can get the job done. But
Mhm.
he's had an opportunity to grow at a high level. And honestly, when you're a guy in that position, you're in a blessed position because you have all the time to learn and you have all the time to be taught. And Ryan Day, what he needs to do is he gets guys in there that can already play, but the guys that he doesn't get, because he can't recruit like, I'll say an Urban Meyer or a Jim Tressel, right? He just can't. He has to be able to develop players. And I think he knows that. I think he's trying to do a better job of getting better players as far as, guys that can come in and play right now. Because he knows they have from that standpoint, outside of receivers, right? We have the best receiving room in the country. I mean, hands down. I mean, we got guys that, probably could come in after a year and play in the NFL. I
Well,
mean, those
especially
guys.
with Jeremiah Smith coming in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we have elite talent. So from that standpoint and from the defensive line standpoint, I mean, I would say the defensive line standpoint, I mean, they're the biggest, they're the best in terms of, coaching. They're the best guys that are, growing at a high rate. But, the number one thing is that college football is based on quarterback play. It's based on quarterback
Well,
play.
you made a great point too. I remember the other play, and remember the Malik Hartford play in that game where JJ threw that pass, and Malik Hartford hadn't played all year, and he's putting a critical point in that game. That was a big play where JJ threaded that needle like that, but really the ball should have been picked off. And
That was an absolute dot.
And Malik Hartford was out of place, young guy, didn't look prepared. And we've seen, I think you make a great point because we've seen that. I think too, last quick on a point on Ohio State, Jerry, I want to ask you, since you played D line, I think Tyleik Williams and Mike Hall are great in the interior. Obviously, you have two freaks on the outside, JTT and Jack, but they weren't able really to generate a whole lot of sacks this year. And I'm curious, I think more Jim Knowles' scheme. Jim Knowles has even said that's not really a priority to him. I tend to think you probably need to want to rush the passer more, want to generate more sacks because they didn't really generate a whole lot this year, which is kind of not common at Ohio State. So I'm just curious your thought on the D line play as a whole this year in that aspect there of not being able to generate a whole lot of those sacks.
Yeah, I think from the Jim Knowles scheme, I think his understanding is responsibility, right? From a traditional sense, Ohio State relies on pressure, relies on the pass rush. And I think Jim Knowles was creative in knowing he did very well. He did a lot of blitzing with our backers, right? He did, or even creative in the bullet position, in the cornerback position, in the safety position, right? He was very creative in understanding. We played a lot of zone, of course, but he was very creative getting a rush from the other positions. And I think with, well, I'm not going to say the guys are not elite because that wouldn't be right. I would say they're not as elite as in the past. Outside of JTT, they're not as first round. Joey Bosa, Nicky Bosa.
And I wonder if JTT really reached his ceiling like he should have. To be honest with you, I thought Jack might have had actually more all around year.
Yeah, I definitely believe so, and I think that was mainly the scheme, right? Because I mean, it's all about in his scheme, which I do love, based on the guys that we had coming back, and based on the guys that we had in this, on the team, as far as from the defense as a whole. I loved his scheme because, it could bleed, but as long as, he didn't die, everything was okay. What I mean was, as far as us giving up the big play, I think we gave up one play of 40 yards or more on the season. And I think
not a whole lot.
Yeah. And he made adjustment as far as, for as far as from a zone standpoint, he actually, I think he dropped one of the safeties most of the time. And obviously our front seven was seasoned guys. So he was able to be, consistent and sound with the front seven, but he was also able to get creative, once they understood the scheme. And a lot of that, let's say, I'll put it in reference to this, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with Florida State and a guy named Jared Verse. Are you guys familiar with him?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He's a dog.
A monster, absolute monster.
No, he's not a dog. They only have one player, and it's Jordan Travis, and everybody else sucks. Come on now, Jerry.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm gonna put it in perspective like this. He last year his stats were drastically better than this year. However, he'll even tell you that this year, even though his production was, cut in half or, 3/4, as a football player, I mean, he made tremendous strides because it wasn't just, seeing the ball and getting the ball, right? It was more so understanding, schemes, gap integrity, and actually being performing as a teammate and trusting your teammates. And I think a lot of, the defensive line for Ohio State was dependent on that, right? Everybody has a job and everybody was associated in doing that job. And they weren't, me style players or even with the elite play, right? Like they didn't, have that, but they were very, very sound and very disciplined and understanding, hey, as long as I do my job, we'll get the stop, or as long as I do my job, we'll be able to, hold guys, right? We're not, even though, most of the year they shut down pretty much everyone, right? Even when they didn't in these last few games, right? It still gave the offense and the team position to win, no matter how bad they're playing. Or one more time.
it was. Yeah, I agree. It's the offense just didn't play complimentary a whole lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was curious because I mean, that's something I was wondering all year, and I've heard on other shows. Just because you obviously you want to get to the quarterback as much as you can, but I totally agree with you. I that definitely is his scheme. Play more sound, more gap assignments, more kind of just keeping the ball in front of you, more simplified, which I think they needed compared to what what Kerry Coombs and Greg Schiano was trying to run before those guys, or before Jim Knowles' game. But I think too, a lot of what you're seeing. I think a point you made about Ryan trying to get older guys in there. I think you're definitely seeing that. I think a lot of these transfer portal, a lot of these young guys, really, I think is from what I heard, it's just more of a cleansing going on internally and just trying to get more veteran guys in there. Win now, especially if you're bringing all these guys back, you have to win now. So, and I think recruiting wise, they're still top 3 to 5 somewhere in there. They got a nice class coming in. So,